Really quick. All right. Good morning, everybody. 𝗟𝗶𝗳𝗲𝗍𝗂 here. Hope you're having a great day here so far. We're doing another open mic session here live on YouTube and on Instagram. Just going to make sure everything is working properly. I know we're live on YouTube, and I just want to make sure that we are live on Instagram. For those of you joining us, or joining me at this point, I appreciate that very, very much. Yes, we're live. Hey, why am I doing this? Well, newsflash, if you didn't hear already, my identity got stolen at the beginning of last week. So about a week and a half ago, which is a lot of fun. I mean, I really recommend it. It is a really fun process to go through. Obviously being very sarcastic here, but that went through and, you know, we've had some challenges because of it. I'm happy to say a lot of the things that were stolen have come back. So that's good, but my Facebook page is like rest in peace. It is gone for now, and not convinced it will come back at any point in time. So that's that. My Instagram page, I can see it, like you can see it, but I can't access it. Like I'm completely locked out. So I'm kind of indifferent to it at this point. It is what it is. Moving on, and so we'll just leverage LinkedIn and YouTube as best we can. And if it comes back, it comes back. And if not, I'll start over and I'll make another one someday and we'll go from there. So just out of the need and desire to just want to share, because people like me, we just love to share our lives and share what's on our heart. Just did an open mic session last week. It was a lot of fun. So I was like, let's do that again this Saturday. And so that's what we're going to do. Feel free to pop on and off as you wish. But I do have a bit of an agenda. I want to tell you a story, something that really cool happened this week as far as how you feel your future. And then I got a friend of mine by the name of Eric Recker, who's going to come on the stream here in just a little bit. And we're going to talk about taming chaos. How do you tame the chaos in your life? And that strikes a chord with me because if you know my story, read my book, Life-Undeferred, available on Amazon.com. You'll talk about how I spent a lot of my life trying to just get away from chaos and avoid that at all costs. And so really fun conversation coming up. I want to share the story really quick. So got a phone call this week from a young lady who went through one of my programs, one of my courses that I did, online courses that I did earlier this year. And she was an all-star student and really engaged with the message, as did pretty much everybody that went through some of these classes and courses. And in full disclosure, like this spring and last summer when I was doing these, I'd never done them before. And so it was, I don't want to say difficult, but I felt the weightiness of the calls. And, you know, people put their time, effort, and energy and money into investing in themselves and me and trusting me. And so I took those calls very seriously, those courses very seriously. And so I showed up as best I could. And we really saw some really incredible results. And it wasn't surprising, but at the same time too, when it happens, you're, I don't want to say pleasantly surprised, but you feel good. That's good. That was the whole point. And something happened this week. I got a phone call from one of the people who went through my courses, and she said, I was going to send you an email or a text, but I thought I'd just call. And I happened to answer the phone. And she said, you know, I've just been doing some reflecting on this year. And I just want to say how thankful I am to have gone through the course with you and just how changed my life is because of that. She didn't use the word unrecognizable, which is a word I'm using a lot lately. But it was as if to say, because of how I was able to change how I think and look at my life and live out my life on a day-to-day basis, it really made a significant change. And there were some things that have happened the second half of the year that if I had not made those changes, it would have taken me down a much different course. And I was so thankful to get that call. I was thankful to her, and I just received that. And by the way, when you get a compliment like that, receive it. Like, don't fight it and don't justify it or slough it off. It's a big deal. So receive that. So I told her that I received that and was very, very thankful that she took the time to do that. And it was just a great conversation. But after we were done, it reminded me of some of the work that I had done like literally over a year ago. And so a friend of mine asked me, who do you want to become on December 31st, 2024, which ironically is in like 2 weeks. And as I was mapping that out and that vision for my own life, I said, some of the things I came up with, I want to be a full-time speaker and coach. I want to author a book, and I came up with a lot of bullet points. I described, how much money I wanted to make, what I wanted to be doing with my time, how I wanted to template out my days and my weeks, how I wanted to show up in this world, how I wanted my superpower to exist in this world. My baby again. And I will tell you, all of those things have come to fruition, which has been incredible. But one thing that my friend asked me last year, and again, this is over a year ago, he asked me, how do you want to feel on December 31st, 2024? And I was very specific in how I wanted to feel. I think I used something to the effect of, I wanted to feel like a hero. I wanted to feel like I was adding so much value to the world that people were actually, I wanted to wake up. I remember saying this, I want to wake up and I want to have messages and emails and texts or whatever from people that I've helped thanking me for showing up in their movie. And that was, when I thought about that, that brought so much joy and gratitude. And at that time, that was not happening. It was not happening. And so after I got off the phone with this young lady, I was like, wow, that's exactly what I wanted to happen. And so I started to feel that last year, even though those phone calls, texts, emails, messages were not happening. I experienced what it felt like to get that phone call and those texts and those emails. And I will tell you, they have happened since then, and they have happened, throughout this year, but nothing that was so in your face. Like, I'm going to call you specifically to tell you how much you've changed my life. And again, I think that it goes back to this idea of when you create the vision, which you should be doing right now for whom you want to become at the end of next year, 2025, who is that future version of you, that most authentic, abundant, optimal version of you, then you need to powerfully experience that. Feel what that would feel like. And I remember, I don't know if daydreaming or fantasizing is the right word, but I remember over a year ago feeling what it was going to feel like to get that phone call, feeling what it was going to feel like to get that text, to get that message of people who probably paid me to help them and then are going out of their way to thank me. And so it was just a powerful full circle moment that I had earlier this week in a very powerful way. And so I wanted to share that with you guys and just really continue to motivate, continue to encourage and suggest, spend these weeks before 2025. Plant that vision of who you want to be on the last day of 2025, and which is great, but I want you to powerfully, emotionally connect with that person. Ask yourself, what would it feel like to wake up and be that person right now? What if that person was in existence right now? And I got to tell you, if that doesn't bring some visceral reaction to you, then I would challenge you, the vision that you're planting for yourself is not big enough, optimal enough, or abundant enough. Okay, does that make sense? If as you feel who you want to become, and that does not give you a visceral reaction, you need to make the vision bigger, more optimal, more abundant. Because as you look ahead 1 year out, there should be some sort of emotional flow that should be generated in your soul to say, that's who I want to become. Because it will be that emotional connection that will drive you towards it. I hope that makes sense. And we will talk more about that with my next guest here. Guys, I'm so pumped. I am so flipping pumped for this guy. I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to talk to him. I'm excited to catch up with him. And I'm excited for you guys to hear more from this gentleman. Welcome to the stream, Eric Recker. How's it going, my man?
Oh, Jared, it's going well. Man, when I got your message yesterday about jumping on, I was like, heck yeah.
Let's go.
Let's do this.
Let's go. I think that my baby, this is Does anybody else have a 1-year-old in the house? Can you guys hear that? I'm sure you can. It's fine. He was running around last week on the stream doing something. I think he was clothed. But no,
he knew. So here's the thing. He knew we were going to talk about chaos. So he's like,
that's exactly right.
Yeah, I'm bringing the chaos.
I want to get to that, and I want to pick your brain on the chaos, because I love how you have framed. You are let me help me out. You're a chaos manager, or what? How do you frame it on your LinkedIn page?
I am a chaos reducer.
Yes. Dude, can't we all have more of that in our life?
Oh man, the world drives us towards chaos.
Yeah,
it just does. It's the natural bend. It's the default. Wherever we go, chaos is everywhere. So I think we need to be intentional about reducing it.
I love it. We'll get into that here, and I really want to pick your brain on that. But first of all, thank you for being part of my story. I really do appreciate that. We've connected now for over probably a year now, but I think the frequency that we both kind of live in, the mindsets that we have are very similar. So I just want to acknowledge you being in my story.
Well, it's so cool how connections like this happen. You think the world is so big.
Yeah.
It's not that big. And how we're connected. And man, I just resonated with your story so much, having the courage to take the steps that you've had. You've been inspirational on my journey, my friend. So I'm blessed to just be able to tag along a little bit.
Oh, well, likewise, my man. And I think you're in Iowa, right? We rarely do I get somebody in the area, to talk to. Usually they're into these tropical climates, so we can we could go down that road. We just got a fresh coating of snow here, and we're huddled in the darkness. People kind of trash. I usually wear like flannels and vests most of the time, because it's kind of like a survival thing here in the upper Midwest.
Yeah, so we're getting ice pellets right now. So
lovely. You
guys are up farther north, so you get snow, and this time of year we get this icy stuff. So we're hunkered down for the day. So it's crazy. Winter's here.
I hear you. I got the fire. We have a fireplace, and so we burn a lot of wood in our house to keep it at the balmy 75 that we demand in our home, which is great. Yeah. Let's talk about chaos. I've experienced a little bit of chaos. And for those of you who are, perhaps don't know the background. So I launched a book literally 3.5 weeks ago. Felt like the momentum of the world building. 2 weeks to the day after it launched, which was 2 Tuesdays ago, had my identity stolen. You want to talk about chaos? I mean, dude, Eric, I will not say that I'm the most calm person, certainly. But as that day escalated and it got worse and worse, I literally was overwhelmed with fear and despair, and to the point where I was almost getting like physically ill because of that. And I have recovered from that. But in that moment, man, it is bananas. And all of these things were rushing through my brain like, what have I done? Like, I'm trying to build a business. I'm trying to build an online presence. And I literally gave the keys to my identity and perhaps 2 of my biggest platforms away. So let's just talk about that for a second. Like, where have you seen chaos show up in your life and the people that you help?
It seems like one of the biggest ways that I'm seeing chaos show up is in our calendars. And I think we're not very good at boundarying our time. We just throw it out there, and every spare second that we have, we try to cram something else in there. And so we get this life where we're just, we're late to our Zoom meeting because we were on another Zoom meeting, and then we're going to be late to the next one. And all of it just kind of gets us going like this. So calendars, I think we have to be really careful about boundarying our time. I think we also need to really assess, where is our time going? Because, if Einstein, there's some argument whether Einstein said it or not, but the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So we're perfectly set up for the results that we're going to experience, right? So I think until we get control of some of those experiences and get control of our time, we're just going to keep wondering, when does this life that we want actually happen? And that's why I love your life undeferred concept.
You know, that's we were talking about this last week on the stream, and so you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner. Most people that fit that mold, they're grinders, man. Like they thrive off of activity. They thrive off of perhaps having a full schedule. Talk about that idea of grit. That came up one time. In fact, there's like books and conferences on grit. And for me, I'm not poo-pooing grit. Grit is great and has served me well. But you can go too far to where you almost try to, I don't want to say thrive, but we find almost value in the just slamming away, 16 hours a day. Where's that balance for you, and how do you teach that?
Oh man, the balance is what I've had to do with the balance is I nearly walked away from my dental practice because I was so out of balance. It was always more. And that idea of grit, when I first heard somebody explain that, and they were talking about, I think it was Angela Duckworth's book, and they just said, grit is like this ability that you have to keep pushing like crazy in the midst of everything else that's going on. And man, I was like, that's what I've been doing my whole life. And so really what I end up calling that is the false sense of urgency. So I don't know if that's anything you can relate to, Jared, the whole concept of grit and false sense of urgency. Think I lost you, man. Yeah, the lovely benefit of technology.
Okay, sorry about that. Hey, Eric,
I'm here.
You didn't disappear. I disappeared. I'm so sorry about that. You were talking about an author or somebody who brought up this idea of grit, and then everything went black. So thank you for hanging on. Thank you for carrying my own stream for me. I appreciate that. Okay,
no worries.
Okay,
no worries.
The last thing I heard you were bringing up an author talking about grit. Pick it up from there.
Yeah. So when I first heard that definition of grit, I was thinking, oh man, that's me. I have been grinding while so many people see that as a superpower. It ended up being my downfall.
Yes.
Because the dangerous thing, if I'm without boundaries, without systems, without habits, just free range Eric, I am going to pack as many things as I possibly can into the day. And it's going to be chaos. And that is my natural bend. So I am so thankful I have my wife to help remind me of that. Hey, Eric, is happening again. Dang it. And I knew it, but she helps boundary that for me.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love that you're willing to admit that. I don't think a lot of people would have the self-awareness to see that. I think of it like this, and let me know if this resonates with you. It's like if you have a cup, right? And you just start dumping sand into it. There is like no space in between like the sand grains, right? Now, you can get a lot done with that type of mentality where it's like it's all you all the time. My mentality, I'm an early riser. I'm always the first one up in my house. If I let Jared just be Jared, I will hop immediately on the computer, like still in my pajamas, haven't brushed my teeth or nothing, just start like going. And I've done those, and there's nothing makes you feel grosser than it's like 2 p.m. and you've been in your pajamas with unbrushed teeth and you've been grinding for 8 hours. I got a lot done. You know what I'm saying? But I'm like, it doesn't feel right. And what I have learned is that I have to create pauses to create space in between the grains of sand, and not to go hyper spiritual here, but I don't know how it's hard not to allow the divine to work in between the grains of sand and create space for that. And the more that I do that, I end up going farther faster with I don't want to say less effort, because effort is necessary, but there's something so powerful when we can pause and allow space for the divine to work. And I think that's kind of the road we're going down.
100%. And I think of the term micro resilience when I'm talking about that. So getting up and grinding the whole day without any breaks, we're really, if we're honest with ourselves, by the end of that time, we're not very productive.
Right.
We're busy, but we're not very productive. So I was speaking to a group on Thursday, and I got the luckiest draw. So they had a board meeting in the morning, then a very carb heavy lunch, and then I was on for 2.5 hours after that. So what a great time to be on, right? Fortunately, it's my presentation super interactive, but there was a point where I got everybody to stand up and we just did power poses.
Yeah.
To try to get us to reframe our mind and wake up a little bit. And everybody was laughing as they were standing like Superman and different stuff like that. I think we have to build, exactly as you said, little pauses in our day that aren't stimulated pauses.
Yes.
They're just quiet breaks where we, get up. If you work from home, get up and walk around your house or walk around the block, stare out the window for a little bit, let yourself be bored. Don't just always be diving to email or social media every time we have 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's great advice. I want to ask you kind of other ways that practically shows up, because I work from home clearly. And I won't like budget in an hour to go for a walk, but I can kind of tell when I needed the reset, and I've gotten better at like hitting a refill of coffee before I jump into the next thing and literally just walk outside. I can't show you, but like we live on this beautiful property in the middle of West Central Minnesota. And sometimes I'll just go outside and just kind of like stare at the horizon a little bit, reconnect with the divine, and just have a moment. And sometimes that's all it takes, just to create, again, that space. So it's not all me all the time. What are some other practical ways that you've seen people be able to do that?
Well, I go back to the fact that before cell phones, when we were at a stop sign or stoplight,
yeah,
there was a little bit of time there. Maybe the radio was on, but we were pretty much just there, and our brain got to just,
yeah.
Or in the checkout aisle at the grocery store.
Yeah.
There was the tabloids and stuff like that, but if you weren't into that, you just kind of stood there and waited.
Right.
So what have we done with those small spaces? So in those small spaces, if there's someone standing around you, have a quick conversation. Just smile at somebody else. Mm-hmm. Take 3 really deep breaths, just super slow in and out. These things reset our brain and let our brain know it's okay. I don't have to be switched on for just a little bit.
Sure.
Get up and walk around. If it's a sunny day, go get 5 minutes of sun on your forehead.
Absolutely.
These are powerful, easy, free things that we can do. I think people think it needs to be reinventing the wheel, but we're just doing what our body wants us to do.
Yeah, it's hard to tell just how that affects our brains when there's never any downtime. And I'm as guilty as the next person of like being connected to this thing and making sure I fill in every single little gap of downtime with this. That's a great point. And I think what people need to understand, I'm not a psychologist and certainly not a doctor, but there has to be, I just don't think that we were created to operate like that. There has to be some sort of, there just has to be some sort of relax. Otherwise, I think, and this is my theory, this is me talking, by the way, not an expert, but you almost create like a PTSD type of like a mentality where you're always stimulated, and then all of a sudden it's like your immune system and the way that your body functions doesn't know how to come back down. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, it's 100% true. We wonder why we don't sleep well at night.
Right.
Well, what are the last things that we do before we go to sleep? I mean, do we get up, grab our phone as we're walking into the bathroom, and right away, boom, we're stimulated, and then we don't let it down until we try to close our eyes and our head is spinning and we can't sleep? Mm-hmm. I mean, the science is all over it. I think we have to start getting more serious about realizing what our body needs and then giving it what it needs. Because what happened with me before I almost walked away from my practice, I was having chest pain, heart palpitations, and panic attacks.
Yeah.
And those panic attacks, that was on me for trying to cram my days too full and never giving myself any pause.
Yeah. Again, going back to this idea of grit, and I've said this on podcasts and stuff, and but they kind of celebrate the self-made man, right? The man who just picked himself up by his bootstraps and just made it happen. And in some respects, everybody has kind of done that in some capacity, and it'll get you places. It will, like just full-time grit and grind will get you places, but you'll burn out really fast. I hit my point about 43. I hit a midlife crisis. I hit 43, and then coming out of COVID, and it was this perfect soup mixture of everything that was necessary. By the way, my whole platform is built off of the crash of the epitome of the self-made man, where it was all me trying to control my circumstances. And so I highly resonate with this. And again, I think it's a great conversation for high achievers and entrepreneurs to have.
Yeah. Like I said, we can either let our body rest.
Yeah.
Or our body will choose to rest for us.
Right.
And what's that going to look like? Well, it could look like a health problem. It could even look like something where you're so empty, you have not been taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
And you say something really stupid to one of your family members because your mind just is not in a good place.
Yeah.
And it's crazy when you start to realize this about other people. You'll have a conversation with somebody who normally you get along pretty well with, but they're biting your head off and they're chippy and reactive and making bad decisions and all of that.
Yeah.
Well, they're not doing those simple things to help right the ship. They're just maxing out constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember feeling that pressure. You said you kind of had shortness of breath, heart palpitations, not sleeping well. I said to my wife one time, I was like, is this what it feels like before you go to the hospital? Where you start to have a full-fledged mental breakdown. That happened. I'm not trying to make light of it. That happens. I've known friends of mine that have, they just disappear. And it's where were you? It's my body just kind of literally told me you know what, you've had enough. You need to chill out for a while. And so you literally end up in the hospital, which is it's certainly not funny. I'm not making light of it, but that's your body telling you to shift a little bit. You mentioned some of the warning signs, right? So if somebody's watching this and they're sensing that, and where did they start? What's maybe some things that they could do to kind of start bringing the fire down, the heat down a little bit?
I think one of the biggest things is just raising your hand and admitting that something's not right. To me, it always starts with that. Yeah. And the great thing is we have lots of people that you can raise your hand to. If you don't feel comfortable with your family or friends or a coworker or somebody that you can trust, you can see a therapist. You can work with a coach. But I think it all starts with raising your hand. And if that is too big of a step, I get it. That's a big step. Get out a journal and write, I'm torched. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm having struggles with all these things. And then start thinking, okay, where are some natural times during my day that I can take some breaks and just breathe a little bit?
Yeah, that's some great advice. I remember going into, I think it was quarter three, you know me, we're doing the whiteboards and the things that, entrepreneurs do and self-employed people do, set goals, and, we're mapping out our year and our quarter and our weeks, right? I remember, I think I was going into quarter three, and I was I just filled up the whiteboard filled with stuff. And it was I could feel the heat coming on. And then a friend of mine said, Jared, you can do everything, but no, he said, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And I love that mantra. And so after he said that, I literally started to erase. I think I erased 2/3, 3/4 of my goals for that month, for that quarter. And immediately felt this, I felt the temperature come down, felt peace. I think that there's something to that, right? If you're in the zone, that there's a difference between knowing that you've got to do some work. That's good. But like the stress and the friction, I just felt release. I think if you're really walking in flow, or whatever we want to describe that, where you're really, really stepping into your most abundant, authentic, optimal self, there's work to do, but it's not this overwhelm of friction and stress. Can you relate with that?
So what I see in that is that we are so hard on ourselves. And that's one thing that my coach has called me out on a couple of times. He says, Eric, would you ever ask of someone else what you're asking of yourself?
Good point.
And so I think we have to look at what we're expecting of ourselves. You know, in that big stack, that whiteboard, I mean, that's great to have a plan, but man, you felt it. You felt that visceral reaction and that twitchiness of, how in the world am I ever actually going to get this done? Yeah. So there's so much power in writing out all of the things, but then choosing which are the most important to work on now.
Yeah. I think what people need to hear too is that when you do that, and I'm processing this out loud. I'm an external processor. So like you're helping me kind of tie the pieces of the puzzle together. But like when you do that, the reason why you're doing what you're doing, and you'll resonate with this, there's a bigger cause to it. There's a bigger purpose, right? Like, you're an author, you've got a platform, you've got a business, right? So there's this greater cause to what you are doing. When you get overwhelmed and you start like piling it on yourself out of trying to really have big goals, big dreams, what it does, it actually kind of pulls you out of that. And your vision, which used to be way out here, now it's like, it gets you like dialed in here. And that's not, you're not operating at your best there. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden, it's very quickly, you could probably relate to this too, when you're just like overwhelmed, it's hard to see really what actually got you here. And so for me, like even this identity thing that I went through, it was pretty interesting area. This is, and I haven't admitted this to a lot of people, but even 2 weeks after I launched the book, I started like just piling on. In fact, I was working more since after launching the book than the 5 months leading up to it. And my wife was like, when do we have a little break? Like when do you stop? And it actually, I cranked it on more. And in 2 very short weeks, what got me to write that book was this vision. And in 2 weeks after, it started kind of doing this. I haven't fully processed this yet, and I don't know the full results of that, but I feel like that identity theft was kind of God's way of being like, nope, like I want this thing to go big, and I've got to like shut some of this down and kind of take you back a little bit because it's getting too much like this. And so, and I felt that, you know what I'm saying? And I shouldn't say nothing, but you want to kind of like have a reason to hit pause. I was forced to hit pause because of that. And it's been really interesting the last week and a half since that happened, where 2 of my biggest platforms are gone, how that has changed how I look and go throughout my day. It's been a really, really interesting reset. And so that's kind of how I framed up that whole thing. It was kind of like a forced reset that made me reevaluate. So I mean, so there's the moral of the story. Like, go get your identity stolen.
Well, hopefully we're creating systems so that we can understand where we are well before a big event like that happens. Yeah. But you needed that reset, and I really needed to have the panic attacks. Yeah. For me to realize this was serious. This is not joking around. But one of the things that I love to do, so I'm also a pilot. And one of the things, when I feel like I'm getting too narrowly focused, I will go fly. And a lot of times I'll take somebody with me when I do that. And when I do that, what I think is so cool, and again, this is very spiritual, but I look up there and I don't fly super high, maybe 3,000 feet. And I'm looking down and I see, there's my business. Okay, that's a dot that I really care about. And there's my house. that's a dot that I really care about. But I'm only 3,000 feet up and they're really small. And as you zoom out, you start to think how many dots there are, and how we serve a God who connects, knows how all the dots are connected. But when I get too narrowly focused, I need to zoom out. And for me, it's physically zooming out like that.
Yeah. No, that's
So
great.
then that doesn't work for everybody, but how can you zoom out? Well, maybe just get away from what you're used to. It can be easy when you work from home to just be so tunnel focused.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you change your location? Maybe you go to somewhere with a big lake where you can just see expanse and realize that the world's bigger, or a beach or a mountain or whatever you have that you can access to see that the world looks a little bit different.
Yeah, I love that. And I can relate, 5 months now from working at home, how your world can get this big. And I think to complement what you said is that with God's help in your message or your business and how you're trying to help, you can be this big with his help, right? But because of our circumstances or our mindset, it can be this big. And so you're actually doing yourself such a favor when you can kind of get outside of yourself and expand that view. And that's what I said last week on the stream. I said, and I go, this isn't for everybody. Like, no, don't take this at face value, because this advice isn't for everybody, but for like super high frequency people like you and I, and a lot of people watching this, you can probably get more done faster by doing less if you spend that time wisely. Now, that's not for everybody. That's not an excuse to go sit around and sing 𝗖𝗵𝗄𝗧 for the next 2 weeks and expect, opportunities to flow in, right? But in all seriousness, Eric, like I feel like there's two sides of the pendulum. There's grit, doing work, masculine energy, grind, and that's good, but it will never be enough because it needs to be complemented by the other side, the spiritual, the feminine. To go down this route, like there's got to be a yin, there's got to be a yang. There has to be both sides, right? And when you can combine those two, not only do you get inflow, you start really tapping into the greatness you have inside, but to your point, you have less chaos and more peace. Why don't we do this more? That's the question.
We think the answer is always more. Right. So we add another program, we add another podcast, we add another pill, we add another workout, all of these things that we add.
Yeah.
I wonder if the answer is not more, but a focused less. Like doing fewer things and doing them really freaking good.
I love that.
That's what I want to do. Because if I can do 50 things, I absolutely can, but I can't do them all really well. Yeah. I can do 10 things pretty well. I can do 5 things even better. I can do 3 things really, really well.
That's a great word. I love that. Guy, hey man, we're coming up on 2025. What are you most excited about for next year?
I'm most excited for impact. I think that everything in my business has been growing to this point, and I think some really cool things are going to happen around this theme of chaos, getting to help people reduce the chaos in their lives. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited we have some cool opportunities. We've hardly been invited to weddings, it seems like, for the last couple of years. And we have 3 significant weddings this year, and 2 of them are in different locations. So we get to travel for that. Yeah. So, I'm just excited for what God's going to do this year. I don't think I know the half of it, but I'm excited.
How about you? Well, hold on. I want to do one more By the way, I'm just excited to see where this goes. And right now I'm kind of mapping out, as I mentioned at the beginning of this call, who I want to be at the end of next year. Like what is my next bold move? That's the question I'm running every filter through. Thanks you for asking. How do you, what are you doing these last couple of weeks of the year to make sure that next year is a year where that blows your mind, where you don't recognize yourself in a year, or where you go to the next level? How do you map that out?
So I'm getting really focused on what's important, because I'm taking a little bit of a pivot in messaging. And so I want to make sure that some of the old things that I was trying are kind of closed up, and then that I'm really being able to put my energy into those most important things. Because I am a 3-day-a-week dentist still, and it's easy. My goal is to boundary everything that I do with my coaching and speaking and content creation and writing and all of that on Thursday and Friday. But it's really easy for it to spill into Saturday and Sunday. And so it's trying to get laser focused and then do really, really good work. One of my productivity hacks, I forgot about sharing this earlier, but I have this, and it sets on my desk, and it's just a timer. And what I like to do, because I don't like to have my notifications all the time going on my phone while I'm trying to do focused work. So I'll put that thing on sleep mode, and sleep mode allows all of the people who are really important to me can break through sleep mode. But the rest of it, then I'll set a timer for about 50 minutes, because I know me and I can work hard for 50 minutes, but then I better take 10 and just step out of my office, do a couple stretches, do something.
I love that. That's great. That's great. Do you do like quarterly breakdowns and goals? Like, cause you mentioned how you want to, start to compartmentalize, because you got a lot, you got a lot going. Speaking of somebody who's got a lot going on, you got a lot going on. Do you start with the vision? Are you thinking long-term? Or are you thinking like quarterly chunks? Or are you thinking like bigger projects you want to check off the list? How do you kind of eyeball that in your head?
So I'm going to start big and then go small.
Okay.
So I'm still working on that big vision for next year, where I want to be at the end of the year. Once I have that a little bit more ironed out, I'm going to break that into the things that have to get done in Q1. And then we'll see after that what's time for the smaller things. I'll have some other things that if there's time, I'll do this. If there's time, I'll do that. And it helps me to have that big picture, but then to go small from there.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. I think this is what I've heard other people say. You have vision, you have goals, and then you have like the daily checklists. And I mean, we just literally described that. That's what you described. Some people are really good at like banging out like the daily checklist. Some people are great at doing goals. Some people are really great at having vision, but you kind of need all three.
You do.
Yeah. You can't just be a visionary, because otherwise you're just always dreaming and you don't get anything done. You can't just be stuck in the granular where it's just like day, check without the long-term vision. It really is the whole thing. So in a different way, you've described exactly kind of how I roll too. And this time last year, I was so dialed in. I remember thinking to myself, like we're still 6 weeks away from the end of the year, and I felt that dialed in. And so even today on a Saturday, I was just checking a few things off my list before we hopped on here. And I'm like, I just want to leverage. It's not about like grinding all the way to New Year's Eve, but at the same time too, like leverage, don't utilize these last 2 weeks of the year. And if nothing else, just really plant that vision. And kind of like what I said at the beginning of the call, start to really feel it. That to me, I think was one of the bigger things that helped me get to where I am today, was that visceral connection with whom you want to become. When you look at yourself in a year, do you feel it? You focus on that part, and how do you connect with that?
Yeah. So it requires quiet, which is tough. And when I get busy, quiet is always the first thing that goes. But without quiet, it's hard to get the vision, and it's hard to see the vision.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things I'm going to have to be really careful about, because I've taken on some big stuff already for 2025. I'm going to do a big endurance event in July, and it's going to require a lot of training. And so I'm really going to have to be intentional about that. One thing that's going to absolutely have to go is I'm not going to have any bandwidth for mindless scrolling on my phone. Just not going to have it.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
So my time on my phone and responding to social media and all of that kind of stuff is going to be very strategic and very boundaried this year. It's not going to be free range Eric.
Again, you get your identity stolen, it'll just go away automatically. It's fantastic. I'm being a little facetious, obviously, but I'm being a little bit serious. Last weekend was the first weekend without, and I still am not back on Facebook and Instagram, which were two of the biggest time sucks I had. And my wife said to me last weekend, she's like, "Gosh, it was nice to see your face." Isn't that like, right? And
wow.
I think she's hearing me talk about this, but like that's like okay. And by the way, what's interesting, I think the fear that gripped me, part of it, besides like having money stolen and like wondering, by the way, if anybody's had their identity stolen, it is so terrifying and you feel so violated. It is the grossest feeling. And so that I was just overwhelmed with all of these emotions like the day that it happened. And it was like an all day thing. It wasn't like hack, it was like this whole big storyline, which, is irrelevant. But in the back of my mind, I was like, dude, I can't lose these platforms. Like, this is how I'm connecting with my people, right? And how am I supposed to run a business? What's interesting, Eric, is that I have had more opportunities in the last 10 days show up than probably the last 5 months. No kidding. I'm not bragging about that. I'm just saying, like, how do you explain that other than that it's a almost a gift in many ways? So like for you, the best gift you can give yourself, your family, your business, your purpose to bring to the world is maybe to back off and do less in some respects. It's a contradictory concept that if you can get in your head will actually take you to the next level. You know what I'm saying? I can hear you saying that.
Yeah. Focus less.
Right. You should write a book, Do Less.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't work so hard. And take a break. You know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of counterintuitive in a lot of ways, but it's really true.
It is.
I love it, man. Hey, man, I've taken enough of your time here on a day where you don't want to be working. So I appreciate this. But just really quick here before I let you go, you got a lot of stuff cooking. Where can people find you? What's the best way to engage with what you're doing?
Yeah. EricRecker.com is a good place to check out all things me. And I like to give a lot of free resources. So there's a bunch of stuff you can grab there. I have a newsletter. There's a knockback burnout challenge, which I think is great for people who are starting to feel some overwhelm. Some stuff about living your life present, stuff like that. And then I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is becoming a little bit more of my focus. I love the audience there. And I like what's going on there. So I'm a very relational guy. So I'd love to have a conversation if anybody wants to reach out and help reduce some chaos in their lives. I'm game for a conversation.
Well, I love it, and I think that your message is so relevant in today's world, and there's no lack of need for a message like that. So I'm cheering you on, brother, and wishing you big things here for the rest of the year in 2025, man. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jared. Cool. All the best to you in the snowy north.
Oh gosh, I got to shovel after this. So not that I want to have a pity party, but some people love the snow. I don't. But I'm also the one shoveling it. Isn't that ironic? You ever notice that? People that love the snow aren't the ones that shovel it. I'd have to say that low because there's people in my house right now that don't shovel it.
Hey, but you'll be outside in the fresh air, man.
Thank you. Thank you. And I can connect with the greater source. So it'll be a great time to reconnect. Hey, man, have a great rest of your Saturday. I appreciate you, man. Let's keep in touch.
Yeah, you too.
All right. See you, buddy.
Bye.
All right, guys. I hope that you enjoyed a chat with my friend Eric. He's a great guy, and he's doing some really cool things. So I hope that you got some value out of that and enjoyed your time with Eric. Hey, just to kind of recap here, he was talking about chaos and how to just kind of cool the temperature down. I think that that's a really relevant message for a lot of people that if you want to expand and grow, it's not about you doing more. In fact, it may actually be you doing less in some respects. And again, going back to this idea of connecting with whom you want to become. Spend these last couple of weeks. What's today? The 14th. So we got 2.5 weeks left, 2 weeks left of the year. If you do nothing else, spend some time in the quiet and start to really create the vision for whom you want to become. And like I said at the beginning of this, start to emotionally connect. If I have to go back, because by the way, as I mapped out my 2024, And I look back at some of my notes from over a year ago. So many of the things got checked off the list. It's incredible. So this power in like writing it down, creating the vision, but not just sitting on it, getting emotionally connected to it where you can feel it. That is such a powerful energy source. It will propel you towards that. And so I find myself doing that more on my walks and my quiet time to like think about where God wants to take this message, which is ultimately his, the book, the whole thing, and start seeing myself at these higher, more expanded levels, and then feeling what it would feel like when that comes to fruition. And that's just such a powerful thing to do. So that's where I would encourage you to do, and where we'll leave this call. So anyway, enough for today. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thanks for tuning in here today. For those of you who have logged on and stuck with us that long, I hope you have a great weekend. And what a powerful time. What a powerful time. I'm so convinced 2025 is going to be a huge year with tremendous open doors for you. And you can really have an unrecognizable year for 2025, one where you look back to literally this day and be like, dude, my mind was not prepared for what happened. But you have to be open to vision it, feel it, and be open to receive it. And I think when you do that, some really cool things happen. God bless you guys. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Thanks for tuning in. And we'll be in touch. More to come on Facebook and Instagram. We'll see. Maybe we'll get back this week. If not, dude, we'll keep doing the open mics here on LinkedIn. Have a great day. We'll talk soon.